Good evening and welcome to the Lithgow City Council Ordinary Meeting of Council on the 26th of August 2024. Acknowledgement of Country. Acknowledgement of Country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which the Lithgow's communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing these matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the meeting practice. All are present tonight. There's no apologies. Declarations of interest, ethical decision making and conflicts of interest, a guiding checklist for councillors, officers and community committees, the oath of affirmation of office. Remember that, please, councillors, this evening is our last meeting. Thank you. Could I have somebody please confirm the minutes of the previous meeting?
Declarations of interest, as Nathan.
Declarations of interest?
Yes, I have something I'd like to declare. I have a non-significant pecuniary interest in item 2.2 of the subsequent papers, regional precincts and partnerships application for foundations. Although I'm not involved in this project and will receive no benefits, I will leave the chamber as I am currently contracted by the foundations to provide heritage consultancy services.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Bryce, you're moving the minutes, and Councillor Goodwin, seconded. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements tonight. I would just like to express sincere sympathy to Cordon Reid, who was killed in an accident, tragic accident, almost a month ago. His funeral was very sad. I think it's something that we now have to realise that life is everything. You never take life for granted when you step outside your door. To see this young boy and his friends and the staff at the school and the families involved was totally heartbreaking. So I think Council this week is going to pay some expression to, extend to them a gift of some description, possibly just fruit and things like that to help that family out. They're a wonderful family that's had a very tragic occurrence happen to them. Public forum, any person registered to speak this evening. Apparently we do not have anyone to speak this evening. There will be 2 speakers only for for and against on each matter. I won't read it all out. There may be some speakers that you have to speak on a subject on the agenda. Thank you. Are there any people speaking in public forum this evening? No. My mayoral minute for tonight. A Halloween festival which activates Lithgow's Main Street precinct has been held annually over recent years, with the exception of the years impacted by COVID restrictions. The Halloween event was embraced by local businesses and the community. I personally prefer to call it a big dress-up party, but both are recognised as something great for our community. The Halloween festival is a community festival that should continue to revolve around Main Street and provide support and recognition of local businesses. I met with the General Manager and Mr Elwood with Councillor Goodwin and for Councillor O'Connor and begged them to change and put the Halloween back into the Main Street. So on behalf of the people out there that would like that done, I thank Mr Elwood and the General Manager. A recent administration proposal on council events included changing the format of the Halloween event to a smaller scale event at a different location. This change was recently announced and raised significant concerns from the Main Street businesses, family and friends of Halloween. The 24-25 operational plan provided an events budget of $250,000 expenditure on council events in 2022-23, which was $349,000, including external grants of $178,000 and $290,000 in 2023-24. The Halloween Street Festival in 2022 cost $188,000 and $128,000 in 2023. Both of these were very much funded. The proposed change format of Halloween event for this year has been individually allocated at $30,000 by the administration within the reduced 24-25 events budget to enable the delivery of other events, including a Christmas concert. I'm advised that the $140,000 would now be required to deliver the Halloween festival this year. This means an additional $110,000 budget allocation by Council. $55,000 will be funded from yet to be identified savings from the events budget and remaining $55,000 from the SRB Economic Development Transition Fund. The SRB fund can be used as a project partly aims to provide an economic stimulus for the Main Street businesses. My recommendation to Council is that Council confirm the Halloween Festival will be delivered on Main Street in October 24 and that an additional $110,000 be granted to the 24-25 events budget to enable the delivery of Halloween Street Festival. Can I have a seconder? I don't need a seconder. Is there any discussion on that?
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment, please.
Councillor Ring, your amendment?
That Council confirm the Halloween Festival will be delivered on Main Street in October 2024 and that additional $110,000 is allocated from the SRV Economic Development Fund carryover. That the administration, point two, that the administration undertake appropriate surveys and assessments of the Halloween event and report back to the next council.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring?
Halloween was initially established as an economic stimulus for Main Street and has acted as such for several years. At this point in time, Main Street is suffering, the businesses are suffering, and I believe that it is appropriate that it comes out of the Economic Transition Fund, the carryovers from the SRV, because that's what it is. If the new council deems that it's a community event, then it's obviously not appropriate to come from those funds. But the briefing that we had from staff, we need to look at our budget and what we can fund and we can't fund. If we need to go out to the community and the community needs to make a decision, if they want Halloween, that's fine. I'm happy with it. If they don't want Halloween, what do they want? We have a finite budget. We can only do so much. But I think with other events moving forward, the budget that's been allocated for this year should not be impacted adversely by bringing Halloween back on. I think any savings either go to the Christmas event or to fireworks at Wallerawang, or it pays for public consultation to find out what the community wants moving forward. The events have to provide some benefit. It's either economic development or economic stimulus and community participation, or it's purely a community event. They are different types of events with different outcomes, and we need to understand what the community wants and how we can fund them. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor. I support the motion and I support the amendment, because if we're going to make statements in regards to Halloween, it needs to be backed up by data. And we didn't have the data to back up the original statement. Now, I understand that other councillors put in representation in regards to Halloween, where it was going to be and where it wasn't going to be. I wasn't one of those councillors. I did receive feedback in regards to Halloween. Why was it in Main Street? Why I wasn't in Main Street? I've also received feedback in regards to Halloween not existing at all. But in order to have a decision made, we need the data. We need numbers to back up any decision or any information that's put out to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Other speakers, please. Councillor Bluff.
I believe there was surveys carried out last year in Halloween. Can I ask the exec if that was correct?
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. Last year at Halloween, I understand there was a roving survey that was undertaken amongst participants. That was a very basic survey looking at how attendees felt about the event and their general experience of the event. It was not looking at other elements such as how many nights they were spending in town or those sort of aspects. Post-event, the council also accessed iData information, which is information available from the leading banks. Primarily, the data that we accessed was from the Commonwealth banks, information that we have access to and that we subscribe to, and that looked at a number of weekends across October and the economic activity, basically through FPOS transactions that occurred on each of those days and the weekends. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't finished yet. Because we were presented this data at the tourism information session that we attended from the Commonwealth Bank data. The thing is, it's the businesses. We need, if we are going to run surveys, it should be on the businesses in town. And I know very well that a lot of the business owners I spoke to really backed Halloween. They made more money than they normally would make on that weekend. And it was they were so disappointed it was moved away because they lose that funding. That income so close to Christmas, which the money is used then to fund their orders for the Christmas sales. So I was very disappointed to see it moved out. Thank you.
Now, Stephen, I could just ask a question following on from what Councillor Bryce asked, through you to the administration. The FPOS figures are one thing, but what about cash sales? Was any consideration given to cash sales? Because a number of businesses have told me on Halloween they generally run cash sales rather than FPOS.
Through yourself, Mr. Stephen. No survey of cash transactions was undertaken.
May I say that there is a business person in Main Street. There are other people in the room that know what I'm going to say. Seeing as there's no professional information, she has a business. Her take-ins on that night far exceeded any other take-ins in the last 2 years. And I can say the amount without saying the business. She took well over $1,000, I think $1,300 and something in just over an hour. Non? Anybody else wish to speak?
I'd like to speak to the motion if I could.
Yes, Councillor Leslie, of course.
I can understand what Councillor Rings, with his amendment, is trying to do. He's trying to actually make the Halloween work. But I think it's a forlorn hope. But let's face it, this is a shambles. And I'm going to vote against the motion. I probably will vote for the amendment, but then I'll vote against the motion, hoping that it just doesn't happen. We can't spend $140,000 on a 6-hour event when this council has just lost $3.5 million. Halloween is on the 31st of October, and here we are at the end of August, and this council doesn't even know it's going to be held. It's not a surprise party. We know the date. And we don't even know where the money's coming from. We're told we're going to do it, $55,000 from yet unidentified savings. Well, maybe the council's budget's got it right, and there are no unidentified savings. Probably not, but let's hope sometimes there is a budget going. But my question is why is this notice of motion not on the ordinary council business paper? You had plenty of time to do so.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
That's a question.
I realise that. I have no answer for that, Councillor Leslie.
I can understand why you don't have an answer, because you've known about it for over a week, and yet we get notice of we get this notice on Friday.
Excuse me, Councillor Leslie. There was a media release went out immediately, I believe, on the Friday. Is that correct? The General Manager will respond to that. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So the mayoral minute needed to be prepared last week and provided to the Mayor with information on a proposed budget. So we needed some time to work out what exactly would be needed, as it was a change of the plan that was put to the information session.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you for that, but the Mayor knew about it last Tuesday because it's on the latest news and public notices published on the Council's website, August the 20th. And in it, this press release has a whole series of misleading information. For example, to ensure we can keep it this way, this year Halloween event will be an afternoon party at Queen Elizabeth Park with music, local markets, details on how to be involved follow, and the opportunity to dress up for fun. That's last Tuesday. It's still there. This council clearly doesn't know where they're coming from.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. We surely do know where we're coming from. That's why I called the meeting through the distress of some of the business owners. I called a meeting Tuesday afternoon. I was on my way to Canberra, as a matter of fact, to the lobby for Lithgow for 3 days. And Councillor Goodwin and Councillor O'Connor.
I wouldn't start talking about lobbying.
Could you please let me speak? Thank you. Until the council staff graciously told me that they would accept the changes, they then had to go back and work on what they were going to do. So that is what they've chosen to do, is to have Halloween in the main street. Are there any other speakers, please? Councillor McGee.
Yes, it's certainly undeniable, the outcry from the main street regarding the moving of Halloween. I myself did not understand it, so I was against it. But certainly the feedback from the businesses in the main street overwhelmingly wanted it back in the main street. Also, to say that where this money has to come from, this can't be from just one source. So I can't support the amendment, in that to demand that it all come from the SRV or one particular fund is unfair. This money has to be sourced and appropriated to Halloween. So I do not support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else? Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Statham, just through you to the General Manager, is there scope to fund Halloween through the Economic Development Fund from the SRV?
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Yes, there are funds available, as is reported in a later report to the council meeting on the special rate variation expenditure for 23-24. There would be funds held in reserve that could cover that, if that is what council decides.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin and the General Manager. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie.
I received a considerable amount of phone calls on the Saturday at 2 hours straight for phone calls. I would like to point out also that there were representations to senior managers. I was not aware of any proposed councillor meeting with the executive. However, my concerns lie more with good governance, how we're making these decisions in between council meetings, and then suddenly finding ourselves in a caretaker mode looking for a spare 100-odd thousand. This is not what I would like to see, and I think the community would like to see in our decision making. In regard to where does the money come from, I appreciate Councillor Ring's pragmatism around this. We can't cancel the thing at this stage. I note the significant underspend in the Economic Development Fund from last financial year, and nearly every councillor has spoken to the economic development outcomes of this. Very little spoken about social cohesion. People have spoken about taking to businesses, talking to businesses, and I also appreciate that Councillor Ring and myself met with businesses down in Cook's Plaza and talked directly to businesses about the impacts. I think we need to get these things right. We can't be making these decisions on the run, and if we have the significant underspend, and keep in mind we did levy 27.7% off Main Street businesses under the special rates variation to return some of that money back into that precinct. I'm happy to support. I'm happy for it to be looked at by the new council on its merits, but at this stage I think that's a pragmatic pathway as to how we fund it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Ring.
No, just put the amendment to see if there's people who want to accept it.
Could I please show of hands? Thank you. I'll put the amendment. Against the amendment? I'll call a division on that. Thank you. Say aye. Against? Thank you.
So are you against it?
Madam Mayor, you've called the division. You need to call the names as well.
I'm going to. Councillor Leslie? Thank you. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman are for the amendment, and Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham are against the amendment. The amendment becomes the motion. Could I put the motion, please? All those in favour of the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Leslie, thank you.
And I'll have my name recorded, thank you.
Thank you.
Against?
Councillor Leslie, a division, thank you. Sorry, councillors, but a division, thank you. All those in favour of the motion? Everyone except Councillor Leslie, thank you. Page 5, 2.1, notice of motion. Councillor Bryce, it's got here Councillor McGee, but I think Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee, police check and working with children checks for councillors, please. Who's going to move it? Councillor Bryce? Councillor McGee? Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Bryce? Councillor McGee?
Yes, this was brought before council previously. It is, in my mind, a very straightforward motion once again. This time I think that the debate's been had through social media, and the public outcry overwhelmingly demands that we partake of this. Domestic violence and violence against children are completely unacceptable and heinous crimes. Especially the domestic violence is, some say, out of control. And we have to do everything we possibly can to show that we find both of these offences completely unacceptable. So a police check is the very minimum. It also brings us in line with virtually every other high-end authority, and just shows that we find these crimes completely unacceptable for anyone to sit on Lithgow City Council as a councillor.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce?
Can I reserve my right to speak till the end?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
At the last meeting, I voted against this motion, simply for the reason it cannot be enforced. I am going to vote against it again, as I believe this is a witch hunt, and I'm not quite sure who you are hunting for. I'm currently receiving feedback from the community, as I have boots on the ground. On Thursday and Friday, I was in Chivers Close. On Saturday, I was in Taranah and Rydal. This topic was not raised, so I'm not quite sure where the public outcry is coming from. I can confirm that some of my team, including myself, have had these checks done, but I am curious who you would like to see first.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other speakers,
Yes.
Councillor Ring?
I have a working with children's check because I get into a red suit every Christmas in a voluntary capacity for the community. Some of my team have already had police checks done. But at the end of the day, there's no new information. There's nothing to dispute the management comment from the previous meeting. I could easily vote for this in the next meeting. Just go bugger off. We've got a track record in this council of doing that and major backflips. It's taken 3 years for these councils to think this is an issue. Why? It's obvious there's an election coming up. What better way to try and widen your opponents and sow the seeds of doubt in the community's minds? I won't vote for this motion because it's a cheap political stunt. It's not legally required, nor can it be enforced. It's about sowing doubt in the minds of interest. That's it. If you want to target people, grow some and attack them, and then suffer the legal consequences.
Point of order. There is no witch hunt.
Point of order, there is.
Excuse me, I'm chairing this meeting. Excuse me. Thank you.
I apologise.
Thank you. It's almost too good to be true.
May I
Getting back
speak,
on track, please, Councillor Marnie.
As we go through this might be boring to some, but it's of interest to me, and I know a lot of other people around how this motion came to council. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask before I talk to it. And before I talk to it, I'll also show two items. My police check is on there and my working with children is there. I have no problem with it at all. So as far as doing that, I have a series of questions I want to ask because I want to be clear how we've gone forward with this. Firstly, I don't in any way object to a group of councillors bringing a rescission motion back, but I'm interested in what happens to clause 17.5 now in the Code of Meeting Practice, where it now appears to be redundant. And in fact, as long as you bring something back as a notice of motion, it can essentially be heard for the second time. Now, this will be an interesting precedent to set for the incoming council. If anyone thought the meetings went late during our term, make sure you've got something to pick you up at midnight, because lots of items will be coming back for their second time without them constituting a rescission motion. So I'm very much about getting the fundamentals right. In the same way around the governance over the Halloween, I want to understand, and the council's had every right to bring a rescission motion back and test the council, but we find that now this is overseen by point 3.10, which to me is a clear understanding of what the standard practice is for a notice of motion. So if we are going to run meetings, we need to run them to some set of rules and procedures, and I can't see it there, unfortunately, General Manager. The other point I want to ask is, can I ask the Mayor or one of the councillors which professional capacity they used to get the Working with Children's check when they completed it?
I'm not going to speak for the other councillors. I had to get that done to go to Parliament House last week in Canberra, much to my surprise. I've gone there many times before, and up until then, I have never been asked to have a children's check or working with. So my certificate that I received is with Trinity, and it will remain at council until I leave.
Okay, I'm just interested because there actually wasn't a identified working with children's occupation that aligned with local government. So I'm interested in what I use my occupation where I have an interaction with children. So I'm just interested what the other councillors put down. I'm hoping that people didn't use the voluntary and the volunteers pathway, because we're asking that this become a mandated component of our professional work. So I'll be interested. People can disclose that when they speak, which one they use. The other situation, sorry, Councillor. Yep, okay, all good. Given the situations that councillors will find themselves, I've never as a councillor found myself in the presence of minors or other vulnerable people by myself in my councillor role. I'd like to ask the General Manager, given that anywhere between level 1 managers, and I'm putting you there, down to program leaders, will accompany councillors in these situations, will the General Manager will also be putting this into place for the staff in those management positions? And given that there is no enforceable for the councillors, I'm not really looking for that as the answer.
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So a working with children check is required for certain positions, so where staff are directly working with children. And I can also respond on the question about the code of meeting practice. So clause 17.5, in a way it's a double negative in the code of meeting practice. It says a motion having the same effect, which is this motion, must not be considered unless a notice of it has been given in accordance with 310. So in this case, notice was given in accordance with 310, so it was fine as it was a motion having the same effect. Oh, sorry, the Mayor just prompted me on police checks. They're fairly standard throughout management in senior roles.
And working with children.
Working with children, it depends on the role. If it works,
Okay,
yeah.
right. I appreciate you answering it, but the same settings, senior management, right down to level 4 managers as program leaders will find themselves with the same exposure we will. I won't be supporting it, and not because I won't support protection of young people and vulnerable people from both physical, sexual assault, and I've no problem supporting that. But what I can't support is a system that cannot be enforced, because when the new council come in, is the council proposing to preclude councillors from sitting in the council if they do not have their working with children and police checks?
Councillor Marnie, just going back to your second question.
Yes, sure.
I'm sure you've been around children where Halloween, the library, the Lithgow Library, Portland Library, Wallerawang Library, the schools, aged care. There are children involved with council activities many times of the year, whether it's a street stall, whether it's going to the foundations in Portland where there's masses of children. So I think, it's 2024. I've been asked twice this year to get police checks. And I thought, oh, really? I had to do it. I didn't have a choice. And the general manager took a police check, 3 weeks ago? Yeah, 3 weeks ago. So we are setting examples. It's got nothing to do with politics.
I'm not discussing politics. Other speakers may have. I'm just talking to procedural. Because
right,
part
no
of
worries.
I'd like to finish, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Stephen. Part of the problems we find ourselves in some of these decisions that have come to us in a caretaker meeting are our processes. I have no problem going and getting working with children checked. There's nothing in me that's arguing against this, but what I have a problem with is the procedural barrier that comes when you cannot enforce it. So that's all I'm saying. That's why I haven't voted, not because I'm not concerned about children and not concerned about vulnerable or even aged people are also in that place of vulnerability. They're not captured by the current legislation, but anyway, I'll leave it at that, and that's the reason why I haven't supported, not because of the welfare of children or other vulnerable people.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce?
So I'll tell you, everyone, why this came about with me. I recently joined the Link Board as a permanent member, which I sent my resignation as a council member to council about this. Part of the sitting on that board was to do a police check and a working with children check. I said to the members of the board that as councillors, we don't do any of these checks. Now, these people, obviously, Link works with lots of vulnerable people, but they were a bit amazed that as a council that we don't sit and don't test, get our checks done. This is the reason why I did it. No political witch hunt, no bias, no nothing. I just feel that they felt. And then I was speaking to people who work in the women's shelters and work with women that are vulnerable in our community, and they were amazed that we weren't checked with police checks and with the checks, the police checks, and the working with children's checks. I was informed by someone who does a hell of a lot of community work that next year the children check will convert to a vulnerable people's check, which will be working with disabled people, elderly people and children. That'll be one check to cover all three. And they said that they, were a bit concerned that some of our councillors work with these people and that we don't have these checks. That's what it's more about. You guys are making it political. You guys think it's a witch hunt, but it's not.
Point of order.
No, this is
point of order. I just want to speak to that. I've not
Councillor
spoken.
Money,
No, it wasn't.
order.
Councillor Money wasn't against you.
Point of order. You've made,
Councillor Bryce,
made a couple against
Councillor
me in the
Bryce,
last 3
I have
years.
to. This is Councillor Money. Sorry, Councillor Money.
I am not talking about politics at all. I'm not interested. So when you point over here and go, you guys
over there, not
you
you.
can skip me, okay?
Thank you, Councillor Money.
All right. You guys, except for Councillor Money, have said in your notes that it's a witch hunt. You're making it political. It is not. It is about addressing some of the issues that was brought to me by us not having these checks done. So that's it. End of story.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee, right of reply. Thank you.
Sorry, I did
Councillor
like to
Leslie.
speak. I hadn't actually spoken at all, so I'm not sure whether I was being targeted as one of you guys. But I'd like to ask a question of the General Manager. The motion reads, councillors be subject to a police check and working with children check. Can I ask the General Manager how he intends to go about getting these checks?
Mr. General Manager, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
Through you, Mayor Statham, it would be part of were the recommendation resolved by council, then we would include a request for councillors to undergo a police check and working with children check as part of the induction process for the new council.
Can I have a follow-up question to that? If a councillor refuses to do that, what's the outcome?
Through you, Mayor Statham, there wouldn't be any action. It doesn't fit with the code of conduct as far as misconduct, so there wouldn't be any action the council could take. In effect, it would be a voluntary process.
So in effect, it's unenforceable. I actually, in speaking to it then, if I may.
Oh, just to add, but it can still be a policy of council via resolution.
Thank you. So an unenforceable policy of council. I understand that. I actually, at the last council meeting, said that yes, that in due course I would go and get a police check, and I turned up at services, the office there, and I went in and they said I needed to have my birth certificate. And I said, I haven't got one. I've lost it. I don't need one. I've got a driver's license and I'm not planning to go overseas, so I don't need a passport. I don't need a birth certificate. But she kindly handed me a form saying, well, you can apply for one, which was of course a cost as well, added to the cost of the checking with children thing, which was $80. So that's expected to be paid for by councillors, is it? And I am very comfortable in my own personal integrity. I have and under the circumstances, I have no intention of applying for or allowing anyone else or applying for this working with children's check. I have no dealings with children. I may see them in the street. I may see them when I'm driving a car in someone else's car. I don't see any in this gallery, but even if there were 30 children in this gallery, I don't believe that my sitting in this chair is likely to be a threat to them. If this is not some sort of dog whistling attempt, then I don't know what it is. So do what you like. Do what you like with this motion. But under no circumstances, until I am compelled to do so, will I take this on and pander to this particular motion being put forward?
Right of reply, Councillor McGee, thank you.
Yes, as far as the enforceability of this and making it compulsory, I have a question for the General Manager. Do we as a council have the right to refuse or evict a councillor from this council?
It would need to be a code of conduct matter, so that would need to go through the code of conduct process. However, there is nothing specific in the code of conduct at present that would cover this situation of a councillor refusing to do this check. That said, if the code of conduct needs to go to the new council, and it is possible for council to add that in to a revised code of conduct, we need to use the Office of Local Government template for the code of conduct. However, it is permissible to add to the code of conduct, but not to subtract from it, if that makes sense. So it would be possible for council to add this into the next update of the code of conduct if council chose to do that as grounds for misconduct.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney. Well, in that case, I would like to add 2 more dot points.
Point of order. This is right of reply. This is not the time for
Then
amendments.
it's an amendment then. I propose an amendment.
This has already been called as
Councillor
right of
Ring's in the
reply.
right. Councillor Ring is in the right. I accept that. This is the right of reply.
Very well, then I believe that it should be compulsory. I believe that in the next council, if I'm fortunate enough to be in that council, then I will take steps to ensure that this becomes a code of conduct matter, that anyone guilty of domestic violence or violence against children or any offence against children will be unable to sit on this council.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. A division, thank you. All those in favour of the motion, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against the working with children and police checks, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie. Thank you. I declare that carried. Thank you.
I'd like to move a procedural motion at this stage, Madam Mayor.
Your procedural motion, Councillor Leslie?
I move that item 3.11, Main Street CBD Stage 2 Footpath Revitalisation Program be brought forward to be debated.
That's a good
at this
idea.
point.
Yes, I'll have a second. Thank you.
I'm opposed to that.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking for a seconder.
I'll second that to move
Right.
it forward.
All those in favour say aye.
No, I'm opposed to that.
Yeah. All those against? Your reason for moving it, Councillor Leslie?
I choose not to give a reason. I just think it's a reasonable thing to do.
Can we have a division on that last vote, please, Mayor Statham?
Yes, certainly. Certainly. And if somebody's up the back taking photographs or using an iPad or something, I don't know whether that's correct or not.
Point of order, Mayor. I ask for a division? Can we do that, please, on the last vote?
Yes, so we're doing a division now on
On this procedural motion. Thank you.
what page is that on, please, Councillor Coleman?
It was the procedural motion that Councillor Leslie put
Yes.
forward. Can we just have a division, please?
What page is it?
I think
It's not on a page. It was procedural motion, Mayor.
I've got a reason for asking. Thank you.
I do believe that it only takes one councillor to object to a procedural motion for it to fail.
Well, you're wrong on that, of course.
Page 41, Mayor Statham.
Can we please have a ruling on that, Council? Please.
We have somebody moved and seconded that we bring the 3.11, page 41, forward to now. All those in favour say aye. Against? I'll have a division on that, thank you. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Statham. For that, against was Councillor Bryce, Councillor McGee. Pardon? Why, what did I do? Oh, all right.
Call it again,
anyway,
please.
we're going to go forward.
Can we call it again, please, Mayor Statham? It was a bit
No,
confusing.
I'm not calling it again. We'll move the motion now.
Sorry,
to
Madam
the
Mayor,
next
you
item.
did call for a division. I think since you called for a division, you should put the division.
I just did put the division. Another time, thank you.
Could we have the names again?
All those in favour, bringing 41 forward to now, hands up, thank you. Right. The division is Coleman, Leslie, Ring, Marnie, Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor and Statham. Against Councillor McGee, thank you. So we're now going to have page 41.
Excuse us, Mayor Statham, we did ask for a clarification whether if one person goes against the procedural motion, does it go ahead?
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
That has been used on me before.
3 you, Mayor Statham. Section 8.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice. The order of business as fixed may be altered for a particular meeting of the council if a motion to that effect is passed at the meeting. Such a motion can be moved without notice. So there is nothing in the Code of Meeting Practice, as far as I'm aware, that says that a councillor can object and it isn't passed. It's by the normal vote.
Can we please ask for a bit more quiet in the gallery? It's just a bit distracting.
Yes, please, the gallery should remain quiet at all times in respect of anybody in the room. Thank you. It's not necessary for people to have to move seats, so please, the people in the front row on the right, please remain respectful. Thank you. Are you going to make I'm going to ask, excuse me, we're moving on now. Councillor Leslie, your request?
I was just asking if you could ask Mr Adams to be quiet.
That's very smart of you to say that. Thank you. We're moving on, thank you. Can I have a mover for this, please? But before we do, the General Manager would like to speak to this. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'll defer to Mr Edgecombe to speak on this report.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just thought I'd make a couple of comments ahead of the Council speaking or discussing this item. Just very firstly, I want to reflect on the fact that this is a very disappointing outcome and the staff are as frustrated as the Council and the community at the effort that they've gone through to satisfy the department's requirements, but the overall outcome that was received. So I want to speak briefly to how we got to this stage of the funding being rescinded from Council. There have been significant projects received by Council that it is managing and has managed over the last 3 years. Projects like Walgan Road at 327 million, plus the other 30 projects that have reflected our natural disaster recovery, have burdened this Council like no other project. Those have needed to be managed in-house. We've tried to advocate for direct state government assistance with those projects, and it's not been forthcoming. But it has created an immediate need for project management resources within the Council. Similar to that, we have been actively trying to attract project management resources. We've been through 3 different project engineers who, with the competitive nature of the employment market, have seen greener opportunities, and we can't blame them for that, but it has resulted in this project proceeding forward in fits and starts that haven't been able to be avoided. We even reached out to project management consultancies and employment consultancies through Ivory Group to bring specialist resources into council without the need to go through an formal recruitment process. And we received an engineer, but that engineer unfortunately wasn't the right fit for council, and they've left. The other option was to look forward to a consultancy firm like we have with the Walgan project. However, the last council meeting, council agreed to appoint that project manager at considerable cost, over $1 million for the next financial year. And it's a rule of the grant funding for Main Street that only 8% allowance is permitted for project management for a project of that nature. So that was not an option that we could pursue either. However, what are we doing in response? What can we do now? The project hasn't stopped. It is proceeding forward with the physical scope being slightly, reduced to from Bridge Street to Esbank Street. Early September, we have received the draft designs. They were received on Friday, and the final designs will be pushed through on this coming Friday. They're being commented on by council engineers at the moment. The tender package will be finalised in September, and it'll be advertised at that point, which will close in October. And during that time, we'll also give the business community a chance to again have their say on the final designs. And we're anticipating an award of that project at the October meeting. And we're also, as is the aim of this report, hoping to strongly advocate for increased government understanding, the difficult operating environment the council is placed within, created by the employment market that again is unavoidable, and the disaster created by climate change and ongoing natural disasters, of which 7 have impacted this LGA in a consecutive 3-year period. Lastly, it's important to reflect on the fact that even though this is disappointing, inevitably there are things that we can change to make sure this doesn't happen again. And it is a huge amount of money, and it's only right that we reflect on the practice of council and the practice of project management that we undertake, and do whatever we can to reassure the council and the community that within our control, those options that are within our control, we do everything that we can to make sure this doesn't reoccur. So project engineers, there's been an ongoing effort over the last 12 months. We've increased the council's we've modified council's structure. The council used to have 2 project engineers. It now has 4, and 3 have been appointed, and we're going through a recruitment process for a final one at the moment. Moving forward, it's anticipated that if those people don't leave the organisation, capacity won't be an issue. We also have developed a new project delivery oversight group, which currently comprises Matt Trapp sitting next to me, but also Sean Elwood to my right, and it will form other key stakeholders as time goes on. But the idea is that on a monthly basis, we assess all of these projects so that we can maintain oversight on key strategic projects like this, like Cupro Street, and give that the oversight that it deserves at an executive level, not just at an administration level, because those sorts of assessments do currently occur with those project managers. However, we want an added check to make sure that nothing gets missed. We're also changing our project management methodology so that key dates are recorded in our Pulse system rather than through the individual systems implemented by the project manager themselves, and are reported regularly to the community and to the council. So again, we have learnt from the process. We're also going to be avoiding trying to apply for several grants to fund one project, because that naturally overcomplicates things and creates multiple milestones that the council struggles to meet and maintain, and instead focusing on finding the right grant for the right project, so we're not having to chop change and essentially create an unwielding puzzle to try and deliver these really important key projects.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Could I have a move of this, please?
I'll move with an amendment, thank you. Well, actually, I'll move it, but I want additional
Councillor McGee's hand was up. Sorry,
No,
you can go. Councillor McGee, your hand was up.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm happy
you're
to
a
move
mover? Yes. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Ring?
I'm going to move an additional point.
All right, thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee?
Yes, an extremely unfortunate turn of events, to say the least. Very disappointing that that someone dropped the ball. Basically, I understand where we've come from to get to this stage. You know, with the replacement of staff and the difficulty in getting staff, appropriate staff. But it's very unfortunate. That's a lot of money to have to recoup. I think that we're on the right track in basically asking for forgiveness, which would normally be forthcoming in these sort of circumstances, especially with the adverse conditions that we are operating under. As Mr. Edgkin said, you know, like we are under the pump, literally. Walgan Road, 325 million, you know, massive projects. The rest of the disaster funding all coming in one fairly big lump too. So a lot of things being activated at once. So a heck of a lot happening, and just an assumption, which you can't assume anymore. You know, that they'd accept these things a bit late, which they normally, to my understanding, would. But this time they have not. So it's just a matter of really asking for forgiveness and hoping that we can think outside the square and get there with both state and federal. You know, really, really try.
All right, thank you, Councillor McGee. Just one moment, please, Councillor Bryce. I've been asked. Mr. Edgkin.
I think I've said a lot, but one final point I wanted to make is that the Growing Regions program, which is a New South Wales State Government program, I believe, opens in just a couple of days, closes on the 10th of October as an EOI. It is perfect for this grant, and we will be making a submission for the Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Edgkin. Mr. General Manager, thank you. Right. Councillor Bryce.
I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. The first question is, when did we find out that we lost the funding or the funding was withdrawn?
Just knew I was on the way to Canberra last Tuesday.
Can we ask the executive? Sorry.
Mr. General Manager. Mr. Edgkin.
Through you, Mayor Statham. There was a lot of back and forth between the department in terms of requests for information that council satisfied, and but ultimately the decision, I'd need to check back in my records, but I believe it was made at the very end of June.
Okay. The other question is then, why did it take so long to come to council? Sorry, but I need to know.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Statham. It took a little while to work through the facts and get a complete chronology of what happened to result in this decision and essentially the mistakes made, which we needed to make sure that when we reported this to council and the community that we were inclusive of the reasons why this happened. Otherwise, as typically happens when there's a void of information, narratives and other facts dominate the domain, and we didn't want that to happen. So it required us to go through with a fine-tooth comb council's records and make sure that all of the progress statements that had been submitted to the department previously by previous project managers were submitted correctly, what facts were included within those. And as soon as those facts were in hand, a briefing was given to the general manager and promptly brought back to the council.
Just one more. Okay. So is it right that the federal grants that was given for this particular job, the federal grant, it's often given an extension, but this time we weren't able to extend that timeline?
Through you, Mayor Statham, that's in a sense correct. What happened with this program is unlike any other realistically. Most grants that we apply for have a defined scope that matches the money, and you have to deliver that scope by the grant due date. However, the funding for this project was only offered by the Commonwealth Government was only 50% of the total project value, but still Council was required to deliver 100% of the project by the grant deadline dictated by the Commonwealth Government. So generally there are easier processes of exemption due to sort of exigent circumstances, if I could call them those, that are applicable for the projects like this that we work through as we've worked through previously. But this project was a little different, which again contributed to the frustration of staff.
I can understand the frustration, but you can understand the frustration of our community. We'd gone to tourism committee meetings and we were told that that this Christmas we were going to do our the revitalisation of the main street, and here we are in nearly September and we now have no money, or we haven't got the money for the grants that we have. So it is very disappointing for the community. I'd like, obviously, if I get into the next council, or if not, but it's still, the community needs to see a procedure for avoiding these in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. It's not unfortunate. It's a disaster. No, it's a complete disaster. The executive summary on the town entry item here is half a page. This one is one sentence, although I acknowledge we had a lengthy comment from Mr. Edgecombe. And you'd think in a report as serious as this, that we'd actually get a table of the losses. We get a table of the money that the council has actually managed to spend, but not one. And in that, we find out that over half of the money we spent was completed when Ray Thompson was mayor. So we haven't got a table, so I'll work out what I think it is. So my estimate of the loss is $1.938 million plus $1.5 million that we're unlikely to keep from the state government grant, plus work done out of council's own budget for design, concept and planning matters. So, Mayor Statham, this council, under your leadership, has lost over $3.5 million. But let's look at the excuses. Inability to retain a dedicated project manager. If that was the case, then the Main Street project should have been prioritised and other works given to other managers. The Main Street revitalisation had a funding deadline. The other projects did not. And the other projects were more piecemeal and could be handled by other project managers. But this one should have been taken on board by the internal comment of the
Point of order.
of the council.
Excuse me, just one moment, please, Councillor Leslie. Councillor McGee, point of
Yes,
order.
to assume that Councillor Leslie has some deep and superior knowledge of the runnings and the deadlines on every operational project happening within council and how staff should be delegated is just outrageous.
I will take that as I will agree with that statement because this is operational. We're not supposed to.
Point of order, this is not operational, this is strategic and this is budget. And that is not an adequate point of order.
Is it up to
I'm
Steve
going to call a point of order on you and the mayor because this is absolute rubbish. Councillor Leslie is allowed an opinion. You don't like his opinion, guess what? Grow a pair. Bottom line is, he's allowed to make assumptions like anyone in this room. That is not a code of, a point of order. It's not poor conduct. He is not changing or fabricating anything. He's giving an opinion. Every councillor in this room is entitled to it.
Are you finished, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you,
I
Mr.
can keep going.
You usually do. Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Look, we're dealing with a $3.5 million loss to council. All I'm asking for is that I get 3 minutes without interruption.
It's not a $3.5 million loss. At the moment, it's only a 1.9389 million loss at the moment.
I correct that. We are, at the moment, thank you. At the moment, we're dealing with a $1.938 million loss and a potential $1.3 million
Point
loss.
of order, sorry, Councillor Leslie. If people find it amusing pressing the button to look at themselves on the camera, it comes up on the film. So, like a few other things, own your actions.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, it's
Enough
very
is
funny.
enough, thank you.
We're dealing with this
Excuse
community
me.
losing up to $3.5 million, and you're entertaining yourself with making
Councillor-
the
No,
council.
I'm not.
Leslie,
You're
please.
constantly carrying on with me every single meeting. I've had
Excuse me.
enough.
Go through the tape, Councillor Price.
Point of order, Mayor. Can we have some
Councillor Leslie.
decorum?
There will be. Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie, cease and desist. Sorry, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Marnie, there's no need for this, thank you. So start fresh. So Councillor Leslie, continue.
Thank you. It's actually, I'm used to being interrupted, so it's okay. It doesn't bother me. So we look at the excuses. And that's excuse one, which is point one, which is stated, council has been challenged by elements of the project, including, so that was one. And excuse two is, yes, COVID-19. Well, you do know that the 19 in COVID-19 stands for 2019. So excuse two is merely excuse one reworded. Now, the report says that council was informed in May, on page 43, no date, that the grant would expire on the 8th of June. Now, our former general manager had to have known that. He was, after all, the general manager. And he kept this secret from councillors because there's no mention of this at the finance meeting on the 21st of May, or the finance meeting on the 18th of June, or the finance meeting held only 13 days ago. No mention at any of the councillor information sessions held on the 13th of May, the 11th of June, the 17th of June, the 8th of July, the 29th of July, or the 12th of August. But May is not the date that the expiry date was first known. It was known years ago, at least 3 years ago, because this grant did come from the Morrison government, which was 2.5 years in the past. That's when it was known, and that's when the process should have been undertaken. It should have been on the agenda as a standing item of every meeting of the council senior staff. And a competent general manager should have had this under his direct observation. The culture of Lithgow City Council has to change. So I have an amendment. Firstly, that A and B in the recommendation here be changed to 1 and 2. It's the only item that has that A and B. And a point 3 be added. And point 3 would read that the General Manager writes to the Office of Local Government with a copy to the Minister for Local Government to ask them to appoint an independent investigator to inquire into operations, procedures and culture of Lithgow City Council's administration. This investigator to have wide-scale powers to speak to staff, to request documentation and correspondence, and to call for submissions from staff, councillors and the wider community. That's the amendment. It is impossible for councillors either the ones we have in this room or the ones we'll have here after the September election, to do their job whilst a culture of secrecy prevails. Open government is essential part for our modern democracies. We need to give the new councillors the information necessary to make an informed decision.
So that's your amendment, Councillor Leslie?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a seconder, thank you.
I will second it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Leslie? Councillor Coleman, you're going to speak to that? Thank you.
Yes, if I could, please.
Certainly.
I don't really know where to start, Mayor Statham. On Sunday, everywhere I went, the topic of conversation was this particular report. Funding in regards to the Main Street footpath revitalization. What I'm really upset about is the fact that we weren't informed. The question I kept getting asked, why didn't you know? You're the councillor. Why didn't the councillors know about this issue? Especially considering that the grant agreement was due to expire on the 8th of June 2024. And yes, I've listened to Mr Edgecombe, and yes, I've read the report. And I note in the report unreasonable deadlines, difficulties of attracting ongoing project managers. However, it's not going to wash with the wider community. I'm disappointed that you've just mentioned, Mayor, that you weren't even told, that you were told on your way to Canberra. And that was one of my questions. When was the Mayor told? When was anybody told? This is absolutely scandalous. I'm curious, when you did go to Canberra, Mayor, did you get an opportunity to speak to any ministers of staff in regards to this issue? Because quite frankly, it needs to be escalated.
Absolutely, I did. I spoke to Minister King. I was with the joint organisation. I also gave Minister King's Veronica, her chief of staff, a whole list of things to do with this. I had no idea at all whatsoever that this was going to occur. The general manager told me going to Sydney, to Canberra. I've listened to both sides of the argument. It shouldn't have happened. It has happened. We've got to make sure now that...
Can I continue, please, Mayor, if I may? You've answered my question. My question is, I still don't understand why it wasn't reported at the end of a council meeting in May or June or July. Here we are, August, finding this out, and we weren't told. I mean, I had a very long conversation with Andrew G this morning and asked him, has anybody contacted his office? I mean, it was actually him that secured the funding prior to the last federal election. I mean, he is really upset about it and he's concerned about it. And there's no guarantee that it's going to be reconfirmed or secured again. I mean, the word disappointment is being used lightly. The word that should be used is scandalous.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak to the amendment?
Could I just ask if Sarah's got it ready or up yet, because it's not on the screen?
It's on the screen now,
thank you for that.
Councillor Ing. So just take your time to read this, please, councillors. Right, anybody else wishing to speak? Do you need some more time?
No, I'd like to speak to it.
Councillor Ing?
I appreciate the intent, but I don't believe that this government would really care, to be quite honest. This government, the state government, look, political reality, fourth safest coalition seat in New South Wales. I just can't see them jumping up and really caring. I just don't know. I have other options. So look, at this point, I think it's a sledgehammer. I think there are other ways of achieving this, and I won't support it at this moment, but I will be putting up, if it fails, another motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, a question to the General Manager. Is independent investigator something that is commonplace in the Office of Local Government? Like, do they dispatch them with any kind of regularity? And if so, who bears the cost of that?
Through you, Mayor Statham. To my knowledge, it isn't something that happens on any regular basis, and I'd have to take it on notice and find out if the motion was approved, if there was a cost.
Mr. General Manager, Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I just see here where there was an external project manager and then he resigned. If can I ask through the mayor, if a company is supposed to supply something and then don't supply it, are they responsible for paying for whatever damage they cause to the council? The company that supplied this external project manager, is he a lone project manager, or does he come from a company that supplies these type people? And where is his insurance if that's the case? If he don't complete a project, if anybody else is doing something and don't complete it, they can be sued if they've got a contract to supply.
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
I would probably need to consider the matter and provide a response to council tomorrow, but I don't think under his specific employment contract that it included delivery of this project. It would have been just delivery of council projects generally. So I'm not sure whether something like this could be taken further, but I will look into it and get a response to councillors tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe.
Mr.
Councillor Goodwin?
Yes, it's a tragedy that this has happened. My stance on it is that if the general manager and the staff can work on some policies and procedures to never allow this to happen again and bring it back to council, so we can so we know what's going on. These things obviously happen. So if this can never happen again, and we put those policies in place, I'm happy with that, but I'm certainly not happy with the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Leslie, thank you.
We just, the culture of Lithgow City Council has to change. And on the 30th of June, you know, the world's greatest general manager resigned. We do need to give our new general manager a genuinely independent report so that he can actually get someone outside of the organisation to look at the culture of this council. This is not the first time this has happened. 6 months it took for the council to acknowledge that 12,000 litres of caustic soda came out of the...
Keep on track. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. This is your first warning. Continue with your other argument. Thank you.
The culture of Lithgow City Council needs to change. And this is an opportunity to get a report into the procedures of this organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? I'll call a division. Or against, thank you. I'll call a division, thank you. All those in favour of the amendment, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. Against the amendment, Councillor Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Ring and Statham. So the amendment was lost. the motion now. Councillor Ring, you have something you wanted to add to the motion?
Yes, Stephen, I'd like to add a point C, retain the AB, and point C, and that is that item 3.11 is referred to the ARIC committee to review the management of this project and report back to the next council.
I'm happy to second that.
The reason I'm asking that, the intent is the same as Councillor Leslie. The ARIC committee are independent of council. Under the new rules and regulations of the operation of that council, there are no voting councillors. There's one councillor who is an observer. They have access to any council documents to review. And I think it's very important that there is a review of this project. It's not good enough that it's happened. At the end of the day, regardless of the money or anything else, this is about public safety. These pavers are atrocious. The number of people over the years that have injured themselves on them, and it should have been the priority from day one. And I'm sure the staff feel bad enough, and I'm not going to bag the staff out, but this is not good enough. I believe an independent review looking at the processes and the procedures can be brought back to council. Then we can look at it, well, if I get elected, or the next council, from a strategic position, can look at it and say this is what we need to do moving forward. There's also the question of culture. 2 project managers left. Now, did they get a better option? Was it the culture? Was there bullying? Yet again, in this council, I don't know. But it's clear that the workforce plan that is in place in this council at the moment, the structure, is not delivering. So the new council, within the first 12 months, can look at the workforce plan and the structure of this council. And I think that's very critical. And I think that would be assisted by having this report brought back to the council. It's not a witch hunt. It's what went wrong and how do we fix it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor McGee, will you accept that other point? Thank you, as the mover of the original motion.
Oh, sorry, I'm moving it as an entirely new motion, not as an additional point.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, there can be more than one amendment. So it's an amendment, it's not an additional point.
Could I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring? Councillor Marnie?
I understand completely why Councillor Leslie brought forward his amendment. I would have supported if there were multiple projects of human and systems failures going on. This failure is a very significant one. It sits with 33% of our special rates variation rise as a total of funds that we need to find to complete the project. So the magnitude is in no way insignificant. What Councillor Ring is suggesting is independent ARIC committees are set up for each council to look at governance and to look at systems. It's clear it's a combination of human systems failures here. I agree with Councillor Ring going forward. Some of the elements that we need to look at is the new general manager needs to bring forward a structure that is fit for purpose and able to absorb funding. What we've had here is we've had quoted 30 projects come into a very constrained project management shape, where that has let the individual officers down is we don't have organisational systems. The establishment of Pulse and a project control group that meets on major civic projects needed to be in place. It wasn't. I don't like talking to things where people don't get a right of reply, but this should have been in place by the previous general manager to ensure that these projects that are of such high value aren't put in an environment that they can be at risk as it's happened. The other point I would make on that project control group, until the incoming council feel confident, and I'll be advised by the general manager, the chair of the operations committee should sit on that project control group to ensure that there's adequate governance and adequate councillor oversight on projects of this significance. The other thing is that we really need to look at the structure I've raised on every single occasion. I'm happy if anyone's particularly interested in going back through the tapes. the inadequacy of the structure previously. I have concerns about the planning section, also have concerns about workload that's delivered to individual directors. This is one of the risks that sat with that, and it's been realised. We haven't invested in our systems to make sure that these failures don't happen. The ARIC committee is an appropriate body for this to go out and look at how this has proceeded. The other point I'd like to make is I don't make big appearances on social media. There's been some commentaries that weren't implied, they were direct, that the councillors had hidden this from the community. What I'd like to say to that is the delivery plan and operations plan is a contract between the council, the elected council, and the administration to deliver. We received that on June 30. On page 38, it talks to these projects, and there is no suggestion of risk of the projects falling over or funds being returned. We have to have faith in our governance systems. At the moment, that's been rattled. When I first found out about this was about 2 weeks ago, or when this came through, when the business paper, came through, and that's the first visibility I've got on this. So I'm watching a project tracking towards completion. It's got an ongoing. People may be aware, I've worked in and around local government for 30 years. I understand how these reports are brought together. If there's a risk, it goes amber or it goes red light. We need to be signalling to the councillors early of the problems that these projects have. So there's some structural things for the next council coming in. There's also some challenges for the general manager. But at the end of the day, we've got one employee, and that is the general manager. And through the delivery plan and the operations plan, we set out the program and projects that are to be delivered, and we're reported back to using that document. So I won't necessarily be appearing on Facebook to talk about this, but this is what is needed to be known by the community, that the councillors didn't have sight of this. It's a very significant blow to us because finding that money is going to be a significant challenge to meet the expectations of our business community. So I'm supporting Councillor Ring. I think that we need to put it to one side and have it reviewed by an independent body, and that we get recommendations, particularly the incoming council, as to how to deal and build structures that are focused on service and project delivery. And I entrust that the general manager will, given his background, apply himself to that. So that's all I've got to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce?
As I said previously, it's beyond disappointment. We were sat in a tourism committee meeting maybe not that long ago, June, to be told that this project was going ahead. It was going to start in December or after December, not to disrupt the businesses, and to find out that the money's gone and we only informed last week is quite disappointing. It's beyond disappointing. And the fact is, those pavers have been dangerous for a very long time. We've known it. It should have been forefront. And this is not the first project that is not delivered. We've lost money on, and there are other projects that are not delivered. The Burton Street Bridge, for instance, how many goes have we had at that? It's the same
topic. Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, it's the projects. It's about projects. We're not delivering. Not all the projects. We have some really good projects being delivered, but there's other jobs that we have not delivered on, and this is one of them, and it's costly for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman?
We need a review. I supported Councillor Leslie's amendment because it's about reviewing the process. I will be supporting this because it's about reviewing the process. I do not want to go out into the community and get bailed up like I did on Sunday about a project that's fallen over. So we definitely need to have a review, and it is about the pavers. The pavers are dangerous, and I am disappointed, and I feel as though that we're letting our community down. So I will be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other speakers? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I think that, for all of the reasons explaining it that we've been given, then, but I think that Councillor Ring's proposal is quite reasonable. And also a couple of the insights that Councillor Marnie mentioned, with a collaboration of the Operations Committee in the future. I think these are the things that could be very informative for a new council. And I certainly hope that the new council follow them up with the information if this gets up from the ERIC committee review. And I think it's a reasonable request.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring, thank you.
I'd just like it if you could put the motion.
I'll put the
amendment.
The amendment, Councillor Ring's amendment, thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Lovely, thank you. Councillor Ring, would you like right of reply?
No, put the
Mayor,
motion.
I'll put the motion.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I don't think it's a case for joy that this amendment got
Not
up.
speaking, Councillor Leslie. This is an incorrect procedure. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Yeah, just put it.
I did. I'll put it again. Thank you. All those in favour? This is the motion, right? Unanimous. Thank you. Let's move back now to page 6, I believe. Administration reports, response to notice of motion, the 22nd July 2024, rural waste management. Have a mover, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Stapleton.
And I'll second that, please.
Thank you,
I actually want to move an entirely new motion to it. So Councillor Bryce may want to actually listen to it first. That the administration report to the next council meeting addressing the following. A, design guidelines for all waste transfer stations to ensure that residents can safely dispose of their waste at the transfer station, inclusive of a risk assessment for unloading rubbish. B, table the review undertaken by the administration's bulky waste services referenced on page 8 of 48. C, options to provide enhanced resource recovery for residents in rural areas at waste transfer stations.
Just giving the councillors a moment to read that. Thank you. Would you like Councillor Ring to read that out again? No? So Councillor Ring needs a seconder.
Yeah, happy to second.
Councillor Bryce, you were in first. Are you
No,
going to
fine.
lead that? And Councillor Marnie will be second. All right.
All right. I brought this motion originally to council, and I'm exceedingly disappointed in this report. The questions that were asked: design modifications to minimise risk of injury to residents, enhance site security. Little information is given about how council will ensure that residents can unload the rubbish safely, other than the skip might be lowered at Meadow Flat. What about the other transfer stations? Potential design modifications to increase resource recovery. As a member of the governing body, I asked a specific question about potential design modifications that could be made. The answer on page 8 is basically, we think it will cost too much. We don't think it's worthwhile. That's not good enough. Decision to allocate funds or resources this year is for the elected councillors to make. On page 9 of 48, it states that council cannot control how residents choose to dispose of waste on site, whether from an elevated height, such as utility vehicle body, or from ground level. However, the construction will place the infrastructure in a safe position from the improved method of disposal from the ground. So the council accepts no responsibility for the designs that it's made difficult for the elderly to use with disabilities, but it appears they're having a cheap shot at someone because they made a complaint. And it references, we don't think it's safe offloading off a ute. The capacity to offer rural residents a bulky goods waste collection service. Page 8 of 48. Council staff have reviewed how to provide bulky waste to rural residents. However, this would significantly increase the cost of the service given the size of the LGA. Due to the potential financial impacts foreseen, this has not been investigated further. The expansion of the curbside service and potential areas for bulky waste will be reviewed for the next waste management contract, which is currently at tender advertisement stage. If council have staff have fully reviewed and costed the issue, where is it? It hasn't been put here. It's not attached. Again, it is the elected councillors who make the decision, not the administration. This goes back to culture and governance. We have a defined role. Staff have a defined role. We have many rural, and also on page 8 of 48 it claims rural residents are typically more capable of disposing of bulky waste as the actual materials are transported to their properties firstly. So because they've gone and picked something up, there's a lot of people in the rural area who get deliveries. It doesn't assume that they've got the capacity to get rid of those bulky items. Now, I appreciate that we've got a large community, but when we have people living in Megalong and Bogey and you're expecting them to do over 200-kilometre return trips, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. We have an ageing population. We need to get information so we can make an informed decision. There are ways, I can think of a lot of ways that we could do bulky waste at the transfer stations to assist rural residents. They deserve to be given an adequate level of support. They're paying good rates. Completion of the Glen Davis transfer station. This project is a carryover from the last council and over 5 years and still now in date. I would suggest the administration look at how they're engaging with the residents, because off the back of conversations I've had with them, I've been to the valley 5 times in the past 12 months. They're not happy. There's been limited conversation. I want the answers to the original thing brought back. They don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be convoluted. Just straightforward answers to the questions. That's all I want. I don't consider that to be unreasonable.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce.
So, we went to a meeting at Glen Ellis just recently, and prior to that meeting, I met with Mr. Trapp and Mr. Campbell about the Glen Davis transfer station. The Glen Davis transfer station at this stage is on private land. We need to know what the options are there and when are those options going to be realised. That's really important. Also, I was told that the administration, the council was open to doing bulk pickups down there, bulk stuff pickups twice, like we do here in town. If you've got bulky pickup stuff, you just register with the council and they come and get your stuff for you. Just tell them what that is. I've used it quite a few times. They were open to that. We need the community down there to be able to know that this is happening. Now, the Glen Ellis people, I was going to talk to Mr. Trapp about this. The Glen Ellis Progress Association doesn't talk to the Glen Davis, or they don't have very much communication. So I think it's important that we involve the Glen Ellis people Progress Association with that as well, and tell them what's going on down there. We need the report needs to address the issues of when these things are going to happen as well. So I'm fully supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any other speakers this evening on this item? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I do concur with Councillor Ring. It's a reasonable request. It's something that we've been working on non-stop in the 3 years that we've been on council. I think that the options to provide enhanced resource recovery could be both reusable objects and bulky waste. Like there's just so many options to be investigated to get something off the ground that is more than possible. And I think, if we are charging for waste recovery, then we'd need to deliver that service. And so I think that a holistic view on what's working right through the area and what isn't working, and then to deliver a really top-notch service. And I think that's quite plausible for this next council coming in.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, thanks.
Councillor Marnie?
Again, concur with what Councillor Ring's speaking to. If I was to characterise the waste team in my dealing with them during this term, is they are a team that are up for a challenge. There's 32% of our waste is generated out of rural landscapes, and they're scattered. Our population densities are scattered across the areas. Councillor Ring quite rightly raises issues from a governance point of view as far as risk management. If we're aware of risks, we need to be addressing them. We realise that we can't give exactly the same service we give in the curbside settings. However, I believe there is some room for improvement, and I hope that the team will take those challenges on going into the new term. So I essentially don't have a lot more to add than what both Councillor Bryce and Ring spoke to, but I do think that we need to ensure that we look for our best level of service that we can attend to, and certainly address those safety issues and look for waste minimisation. If everything's going to go into landfill from rural, we've got 32% of our waste stream going straight to landfill. If we can have some waste minimisation, and as Councillor McGee spoke to, look at whether there's some resource recovery happening in the rural landscape. So I look forward to your response to that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. If there's no other speakers, right of reply, Councillor Ring.
No, please put it, Mayor Stephen.
I'll put the amendment. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. Declared carried. Page 11. 3.2, town entry signage concept designs. Please, could I have somebody move that?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'm happy to second this.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
The entries to our town are pretty poor. The old signs have been around for quite a long time. They're very deteriorated in some spots. And it's good to see that this is going to hopefully happen, that we're going to change. That always changes the people coming into town and their view on our town. I see here that it's representative of total 12 signs, an estimate cost of $89,400 exclusive of GST, should all locations be included. So I think we should include all locations that we've got there. There is a lot more locations. The one going out to Cullen is really disgraceful. You can't even see it's Cullen. Lucky they've got another sign, their own sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'll bring your attention to point 2 of the recommendation. The submissions and options to further develop the town entry signage be considered by council following the completion of the tourism and corporate branding reviews in November 2024. So my understanding of this recommendation is we're thanking the respondents for the submissions, and then we're holding it back until the tourism and corporate branding reviews are completed in November 24. And it does need to be completed, because the feedback I'm receiving is, why isn't Greater Lithgow being mentioned in our branding? You know, people keep saying to me, surely we're not ashamed of being part of Lithgow. Surely we're not ashamed of saying that we're from Lithgow. So why is it not mentioned in the Seven Valleys branding? The other feedback I've received, and maybe the administration can answer, please, Mayor, is why are we spending money on a rebranding? Has this already been done? Because people keep saying to me, I thought we've already done this, Cass, so why are we doing this again?
Councillor Coleman, keep on topic. We're here to discuss only the signage.
It says that in the recommendation, tourist and corporate branding reviews. So if I could have that answer, I would like that, please.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. The terminology tourism and corporate branding review, that refers to the strategic branding review and marketing plan development that was approved for the review of the Seven Valleys brand, which has been commissioned and is currently underway. So that's what it is specifically referring to. And that is the wider assessment of the Seven Valleys brand, which was rolled out a number of years ago, 5 years ago, sorry, to be a bit more accurate, as well. So the consultancy that's undertaking that review is currently undertaking a range of focus groups, looking at relocators to Lithgow, as well as recent visitors to Lithgow and visitors that have not come to Lithgow, and has in the past 2 weeks also held a number of specific workshops with some local businesses to put input into that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Ring?
Look, I support the recommendation as it is. In terms of tourism marketing, we're actually selling to people outside of the community. We're not selling to the community. We're selling to people we want to come here from far away. Seven Valleys was adopted on the last council, never implemented properly. It's being reviewed. Now, maybe it's not the best, maybe something else can be done. But there's also how you market Lithgow in terms of how you want to attract new residents. There's a couple of different concepts at play. So I think we have to wait until we get the branding reviews in to be able to make an informed decision. That will determine what's the most appropriate signage coming forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I think it's very exciting. There's no two ways about it that the signs need revamping, redoing, and I think that it's just a fantastic option, especially with the involvement of the committees, especially tourism. You know, I think personally I like the Seven Valleys branding. I think it will work, but just first impressions are everything. And as you're driving in, to see something fresh and appropriate for each town or township, or whether it's a uniform thing. So I really look forward to seeing what the submissions were and what's put out for public display. So either if I'm not on council, then I can always comment on them, which will be just fantastic because I think it's essential.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, on a topic of signs, I would like to see there's a business at the bottom of Main Street. They do all the signs for Bathurst and everybody else. Street signs and every type of sign, but they don't get an opportunity in Lithgow. I asked him today, were they doing it? And he said they get very little work from Lithgow. The only time they'll buy anything in the stores is if it's 10 to 5 in the evening and they can't get it anywhere else, they race in there and get it. I'd like to see a difference if there's all signs to be bought that the local content and local people that's employing get a good opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mayor. I'm interested in the 6 concept designs. I'm assuming they've come in non-gratis, so they're basically very generously providing concept designs. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Elwood?
That is correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. I hope if we intend to use the artistic work of individuals that we actually will pay them for their work. Arts are an industry. They're a creative industry. It's not a hobby. So I think Councillor O'Connor spoke to local content and using local content and paying them. If we do select one of those, I would hope that we do to bring them to an advanced design that there is some remuneration involved. I think arts tourism and the arts in general in this town are part of our local economy, and we need to be treating it as such. The second point, just on the local content, yes, don't disagree at all. And in fact, I brought the procurement policy back for review to ensure that it has local content as part of its component elements. It might be worthwhile for the General Manager to remind staff of the need to review local content options before we move on to Bathurst or somewhere else. But that policy was brought forward to give points to local contractors, particularly in construction jobs. It can make a significant difference in a tender. So completely concur with Councillor O'Connor on this one. So I've just asked that the arts aren't seen as a hobby, it's an industry.
Mr. Elwood would just like to comment on that. Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. Yes, the intention would be, as we would with any other professional engagement, we're paying for the services that are rendered, specifically when they have a specific skill or component such as the arts as well. So our intention is to support the local arts scene where we're engaging them specifically. And there are other aspects of projects that council works through where we do engage and pay for specifically on that as well. And some of our contracts specifically also identify copyrights and ownership in regards to intellectual property.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, Mayor Statham. Our towns are in urgent. Our town is in urgent need of, all the signs are in urgent need of repair. We keep kicking the tin down the road about this. The project needs to be sustainable and last for more than just a few years if we decide what we do and decide on the designs. We have funding approved. It's been sent out for design for the community. There's 4 or 5 that have come through along with the one that's similar at the jail. I'm happy for it to come back to the December of the November meeting, but just thinking forward, if it goes to the November meeting, then it won't be until at least April or May that we'll see these signs out on the road. Our roads are looking terrible at the moment, but if that's coming back through to the November meeting, and that's how it has to be for a proper evaluation of the signs, I'm happy for that to happen. But just as long as people know that this probably we won't get to see anything until probably April or May.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I move an amendment to this?
No, you've already spoken. Have you?
No, I've got an amendment though.
Has he spoken? I'm not sure if he's spoken. Sorry, I'm not sure if you've spoken. Is this foreshadowing an amendment?
No, it's an amendment to this motion.
Have you spoken on this subject? You have, haven't you?
I've spoken to it.
I don't know about that.
Or if the move is happy, I could just suggest a point. I was under the impression from the Operations Committee that provision had been investigated to make covers for the existing signs to revamp them in the short term. Could I ask that?
Yes, please.
Through you, Mayor Statham, we did look into those. They were, from memory, I can't remember the cost of them from memory. However, I believe it was a few, like $500 or $600 each. And it was suggested that we go through and construct those as an interim solution and place it over the existing signs.
Mayor Statham, through to the stage, have we considered any types of wraps or anything like that you can put over the sign? Not an actual case that goes over the sign, but just those vinyl wraps that people cover their cars in, something similar, just to brighten it up.
Through you, Mayor Statham, we can go down the route of wraps, but most of those signs are considerably impaired. They're cracked, and their integrity probably wouldn't be sufficient to make sure that the vinyl wrap itself would adhere and not reflect the damage through itself within a matter of weeks or months. I would suggest that the only way to reasonably and temporarily repair them would be to consider those covers, which, if the council were so inclined, we could promptly obtain a quote to have them all done and consider a funding source to report back to the council.
Mayor Stephen, I don't believe there's anything in the Code of Meeting Practice that precludes Councillor McGee putting an amendment up even though he's spoken. And if there is, I'd like it read out,
He
please.
can speak.
Good. If he wants to put it up, I'll second it.
Councillor McGee?
Yes, a third point allowing for the provision, I think there was 12 signs in total. Was 12 main signs? Well, how many? 14? Oh, well,
Could I suggest something, Councillor McGee? Just word it as implement the original recommendation from the Operations Committee to put sleeves on the nominated signs.
just like Councillor Ring said, that we implement as recommended in the Operations Committee to place sleeves over the existing signs for the short-term brightening of our entrances to our towns. And that preferably the printing job go to a local contractor.
Can I have a second to think?
I already second. Yeah, I second it. And this is what was put at the Operations Committee meeting. It was voted down. I think it's the most economical way to get a fix on these signs to allow informed decisions to be made moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. By the way, the quotes we had from them were from a local supplier.
Is that an additional point to the motion that I passed? I moved.
Okay, that's done then. All right, continue on. Thank you, councillors. Thank
Can we
you,
put it?
Councillor McGee.
Can we have the motion put, Mayor?
Yes, I'll put the motion on.
One moment.
Oh, Councillor Coleman has requested it. Councillor Leslie.
Sorry.
That's fine, he can speak.
So I had intended to actually support this motion, but with this amendment, now that it's been accepted both ways, I find that I can't. We've got $3.5 million to recover, and here we are trying to save some signs. I think we just need to realise that yes, they're faded, yes, they're bad, but in due course they will be replaced. And when they're replaced, they'll be good. But we're not going to gain anything by fiddling around now, trying to just make them look better for some reason. Let's just do the job once and do it right, even if it does take us a little while to do it.
Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mayor Statham, as the seconder for the original motion, I didn't say that I agreed to the amendment. I'm happy with the original motion, not the amendment, so I'll be voting for the original motion. Because Councillor Leslie's actually got a point. If you're going to do something, you might as well do it right the first time.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Right of reply, Councillor Bryce. Oh, sorry, pardon. Councillor McGee.
As an amendment, yep. It's, I think that it really needs to be done. I drove past the Wallerawang one this morning and you could barely read it. It's extremely corroded, in very poor disrepair. The others are exactly the same. They're of a canvas. They haven't held up to the weather well. And I think that for the LGA, as we're trying to enhance the LGA, we're in a period of where we are trying to find our new selves in the transition from coal-powered power stations to the future of renewables and all of those things that are in that mix. And to have ourselves looking as good as possible in the short term, because as Councillor Goodwin pointed out, at the rate we're going, and we are doing it properly, we're doing a very thorough job, but we're going to be looking at April, May of next year before anything gets on the ground. That's too long to leave these signs looking the way they are. It looks like we do not care. And that's simply not true. Like, I'm proud of Lithgow, I'm proud of all of our townships around this area, as the people in them are. And I think that to do this one small thing, it's a few grand. And yep, we'll claw back that 3.5 million or 2.5 million and whatever we have to do, because we'll make sure we do it. You know, I just think, what would Ben Chifley do? And he wouldn't just bow down, he'd stand up and get amongst it and make the LGA look as good as he possibly could.
Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor,
point of order, Madam Mayor. On many occasions you asked me to keep on topic. I was wondering if occasionally you might ask Councillor McGee to keep on topic.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I try to. I'll put the motion. No, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'll put the amendment. Thank you.
Just put the motion.
All right, I'll put the motion then.
Yeah, just put it.
Put the amendment now. I'm going to put the amendment until Councillor Ring tried to stop me. I'm putting the amendment. Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? I don't know what the funny thing is about this. Right. Against the amendment? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. I'll call a division. Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor McGee, O'Connor, Goodwin, Ring, Marnie, Thompson, and Councillor Bryce is not in the room. Thank you. And against is Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. So I declare that carried. Thank you.
You still have to put the amendment as a motion now, Mayor.
I'm going to, please. So I'll put the amendment now as the motion. Back to the original motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. A division. Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Ring and Marnie and Statham, and against is Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. So that was carried. Thank you. 3.3 on page 15, management and hardship policy. Can I have somebody move this, please?
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Marnie. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie, thank you.
A couple of things. Just firstly, and we talk about this pretty much every time we get a policy item in, but we're not getting that traction with the community to get a conversation going. So our current mode of consultation is either not working or there's a disinterest, and I'm not sure the second's the case for those people affected. We've got over 35% of our residents who pay more than 30% of their income for their housing needs. And even those in the rental market, they've seen their rents go up by 25% in recent times. So from an average around 320 to 400. So people's capacity to pay is diminishing year by year. It's important, and I've got confidence that our staff will use this carefully and fairly, that we're aware of the impacts of compounding debt. And we do have some fairly high charges on our unpaid rates. They're as high as some of the highest placed average, or the highest placed credit cards in the market, around the 10% mark. So the only thing I would ask is, in adopting this, that this continues to be a very focused thing around fairness and people's individual needs.
Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring, thank you.
I said it when I first came back on council, a lack of consumer confidence in council. They're not engaging with us. They're not talking. So obviously we're doing something wrong in trying to get their feedback. The next council has to try and work out how to be more effective in engaging the community and getting their feedback. This has been the council. It's been debated. I believe it went to the finance committee. I'm satisfied with it. I just want it put to the vote, please.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce.
I I've spoken about this on numerous occasions on this council, that we need to do better with community consultation. Obviously, putting it out for exhibition and having no submissions is not good enough. We really need to work out how, and we do need to work it out, how we engage with our community. How do we get them to make submissions? Because it's not, whatever we're doing now is not working. And I agree with Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring on this. We need to look at this in the next council. We need to better engage with our community and get feedback. Whether it's positive or negative, we need to have some feedback on these policies.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee.
Yes, it's one thing that I must congratulate the executive on this matter is I've always been impressed at the lengths that they go to ensure that people have an ability to pay. It was not something I was particularly aware of when I came onto council, but it never fails to be brought up in meetings and as a relevant topic by staff themselves. So I must congratulate them for that.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, please, Councillor Marnie.
Just a brief suggestion. Perhaps the visibility of our meetings is minimal. If we look at our ratings, we're certainly, we get 150 people watching this. And similarly, our reports are not visible in the community unless there's a very consequential issue. I think it might be good to go out and have forums around these elements, talk to people like community projects, talk to Link, talk to people that are potentially got clients in the hardship area, and talk to us about how we can best communicate that to people and how we can best work to meet their capacity. So we may have to change the way we're doing things, but I agree. Councillor Bryce has raised this on a number of occasions, so has Councillor Ring. It is something we're going to have to change the model because the model's not working. Anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie, sorry. I'll put the motion, please. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Page 17, Lithgow Solid Waste Facility Landfill Gas Extraction. Have a mover, please.
I'd like to move it, thanks, but I'd like to move it with a new recommendation.
Okay.
Sorry.
Before you second that, Councillor Bryce, I'll get you to listen to Councillor Ring's recommendation. Thank you.
I was going to suggest the same thing. My motion is to delete item 1 and 2 and to replace it with an item 3.4 referred to an information session prior to it being brought back to council. You happy with that, Councillor Bryce? Thank you.
You'll accept that, Councillor Bryce. Thank you.
The reason I'm moving that is this is a complex issue, and attached is a confidential report, Lithgow City Council Emissions Reduction Plan. Update, final report in May 24. I've not seen it. The last 12 months I've had no discussions over it. I've spoken to some other councillors, no one's been aware of it. We're stakeholders. Apart from being the governing body, we're stakeholders, and we need to be involved in these discussions. There was a very brief discussion on mining waste from a consultant who now works for us at an information session. Very brief, just to throw a few throwaway lines. This is a very complex issue. I had a lot of trouble trying to get my head around it. And it appears to be more about economic benefit than environmental benefit. I'm not against this turning a buck, but what about the old Hartley tip? What about the tip at Capey? What about the Wang tip? They're also emitting gases. What are we doing about those? I would like to have those discussions. So I think it needs to come back to the next council so those discussions can be had robustly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce.
The concept is very exciting. The fact that we're using the trap gases for repurposing usage of it rather than just expelling it out to air. It's very exciting, but we do need more information. It is a complex issue. We need to find out more how it's going to work, the the costings, the whole lot. I think it's important that we understand a bit more, and I agree that we need to have an information session for all councillors to get their head around this concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any other speakers? Thank you. Councillor Ring, put the motion.
No, put it, please.
Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Page 21, Roadside Weed Control Services Agreement. Have a mover, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie.
I would like to, now maybe I'll just take advice, but I'd actually like to defer this to the incoming council. So I'd like to make an amendment, and I may or may not get support for this, but part of our charter, or as a councillor as I've seen it, is that we need to review our services, particularly with external providers, to ensure we're getting best design and best cost benefit out of those processes. The work that's been occurring in recent times has significantly addressed weeds on high-risk pathways, roads. I'd like to see a design where the same weeds are being targeted in our adjoining reserves, because the dispersal pattern of blackberries is not a waterborne corridor-based weed. It moves via birds and other animals, and the impacts on adjoining farming lands are as important coming out of reserves as they are out of road corridors. I would like us to also look at where this function sits. It goes to some of the conversation we had earlier. We now have some specialist staff who have got experience around weed management. I think the general manager needs to look at whether all operations come out of an operational division, and whether in some operations can come out of others. I'm not making a commentary on how it's done. I think we need to think about it, how workloads are shared across it, and I see this more fitting into Mr. Elwood's area with his staff and expertise in the environment area. I'll let that go forward for consideration, but I would like to see what the council could deliver as a comparative model on $224,651 with an additional injection of around 150. That provides for a significant workforce to deliver outcomes. So I think as a council, we're in my mind, we're obliged to review our services and structure to ensure we're getting best value for money. I'm not saying that we're not getting good value for money out of the Upper Macquarie County Council, but we certainly need to review that, and I would suggest that this is best put in front of the incoming council.
Thank you, Councillor Money. Mr. General Manager would like to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The Central Tablelands Weeds Authority has stated that the amount of works for $150,000 for this financial year would ensure the council met its biosecurity duty. It is, of course, council's decision whether they wish to allocate funds to this or not, or defer it. But just to mention that we would certainly be reviewing the service regardless before the next budget. It is disappointing that this has come to council and to the administration quite late, and I'm aware that the Weeds Authority is looking at their processes to try to ensure that's received earlier, as in April, when councils are considering budgets in future.
If I
Thank you, Mr.
could
General Manager.
respond to that, if there is an interim amount of money that is brought to it, but some of the concern I've got is that we're using unspent SRV and we're using it when we're sitting in a caretaker mode. So I would have liked to have seen this earlier, where council's making a decision about this. The meeting of our general biosecurity duty under the Biosecurity Act isn't a dollar amount. So yes, it contributes towards that, but I think that we need to look at where we go forward with our asset management, and that includes our general biosecurity duty in our reserve system, as well as our public roads. So they're both part of that general biosecurity duty.
Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce, do you accept? No? So,
I'll
Councillor...
second if we can get a motion up. If
Yes.
it's about deferring, I'm happy to second it.
Yes.
Well, do we have the motion so Sarah can get it up, please? Can you move it, please?
What do you move?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm comfortable largely to keep the motion as it stood. So if we put the 150, however, that our ongoing, I know.
Councillor, a moment,
Okay.
please. You have moved that we defer it. So are you deferring it, or are
I'll
you
just
not?
keep it simple. We defer.
That'd be a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Right.
that's all right.
So, Councillor Bryce, you have first say. You don't want that to occur, right? Councillor Coleman. Councillor. Just one moment, please. Councillor Coleman, you've had your light on, and that you've just put it off now. But I was giving you the.
Can I speak now, please?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I'm not opposed to spending extra money on weed control. Not opposed to it. However, the SIV fund is not a slush fund. It's got targeted projects. Talking about taking 150,000 of SIV money to do this. In this report on the SIV and the performance last year, on page 26 of 48, general asset and other asset classes, this is where weed money was taken out last year, about 68,000. It states that $143,886 transferred to reserve for substantial 2024-25 projects. It doesn't specify that that is for weeds. So I really want clarification moving forward on that. And quite frankly, the idea of spraying a road every 3 years, really, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of money. You'll spray it this year, next year the weeds will come back. You've got to go back with some plants, and I'm sure Councillor McGee would agree. There are some species of weeds you've got to spray every year for a number of years before you can say that area is clean. And this is not about weed spraying. This is purely about biosecurity and protecting our backside so we don't get taken to court. And I appreciate that. But I want to see a better plan moving forward and a better use of the money. And when you're spending 150, are there areas where there are targeted species that we want to get? Are we working in conjunction with the landowners? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Are we going to target new invasive species that come into the LGA, moving in from the west or north, before they get a foothold? These are the sort of issues I want to know before we start committing money. That's why I think it needs to be deferred. I'm not ruling it out for this year's work. No, I'm not ruling it out. But we need to have a better understanding of where the money is coming from, what the program's going to be, and that's very important.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Jonathan Edgham's just going to speak. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, the point that Councillor Marnie makes is a very, very good one, and Councillor O'Connor made it to me via email recently too. The process of, in response to these significant bills, you're right, it's only prudent that we consider alternative means of service provision. These are massive bills, and there are different ways we can do things. So I've already tasked Council's staff to conduct that review and all of the costs of providing these services, not just for roadsides, but weed spraying of public lands, including parks, gardens, sewer treatment plants, and others, and tips. And that we will bring a report back to the new council, very similar in vein to the decision to remove the cleaners off contract to internal provision. The report will be along that vein where we consider the pros and cons of both sides, the costs associated with both, and the council can make an informed decision which way they would like to proceed. So I expect and aim that report will be delivered to the October meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Now, anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee, then Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, weeds are weeds by nature, and any control is good control. Any reduction is good reduction. You know, you reduce that seed bank for 1 year, that's still a reduction, and it is advantageous. What I would like to know, my question to the administration is, will this $150,000 be spent over this next spring? Because we've got a cracker coming and there's going to be a lot of growth. There's going to be a bump of weeds. I would recommend, if we have teams ready to go and this money can be spent immediately and be doing good from now, then I would be for it. But that's my question.
Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
In a recent meeting with the Central Tablelands Weeds Authority, they did note that in the last financial year they did it later than they would have liked, and that it is being done earlier this year, but I don't have an exact date. So I will take that on notice and I'll provide an update to the council in writing. I'm not going to commit tomorrow because I don't know, and I'll need the Weeds Authority to commit, but to give me that information, but I will get it as soon as possible and will aim to have a response back to you within the week.
Yes, that may have answered my question, but my question was through you, Mayor, to the administration. What are the consequences by not allocating the funding tonight? What would the consequences be by deferring?
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
The consequences of deferring likely relate. The Central Tablelands Weeds Authority don't. At times, they often engage their own contractors or subcontractors to deliver this type of work. They did last year. And what it will mean is that we may end up delayed in terms of our weed spraying services, which might preclude them from being done in the spring season, as Councillor McGee suggests. So realistically, the service will be still able to be delivered in the 12 months. It might just be a delay of 4 weeks or 8 weeks or so, or however long it takes to make that decision.
By deferring it, will it increase? Will the price increase, or will it stay at 150?
I'd say it will stay at the 150. It'll be a fee for service. So if there are minor cost of material increases, they will be passed on to council. However, I don't think that's likely.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe and Councillor Goodwin. Councillor O'Connor, thank you.
Yes, I sent an email to Mr. Edgecombe on this a few weeks back. It's a lot of money to spend, and my gist of my email was that we need to buy some plant for Lithgow Council and train some people up and start doing it, because the cost to Lithgow, the cost to Blaney is about $2.50 per kilometre. The cost to Lithgow was nearly $8 last year. Under the current plan here, it's about $720 a kilometre. And I don't think we got any worse weeds than Bathurst is far less than what we pay, probably because it's in the town centre and the outskirts, but it's definitely cheaper. So
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Oh, sorry, go on.
If I could say what I would like to put an amendment to cut it back to 1 year, so that gives time to the new council to get established and have a look and see what they want.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Would like to speak to that, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The recommendation is only for an allocation this financial year. As Mr Edgecombe has mentioned, a review is being conducted, and that will be put to the new council for the following financial year.
Oh, that I thought it was for 3 years. That's fine if it's for 1 year.
So you're happy to let that go? And yes, all right, thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Goodwin? No? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you. Yes, the cost of doing roads in Lithgow is substantially higher than in Blaney. Blaney, of course, is flat mostly, and Lithgow has areas such as McCain's Falls Road, which is extremely difficult to do because of the safety aspects. You do need extra vehicles on either side of the sprayer, and so these costs do come up. The Central Tablelands Weeds Authority, of course, does have economies of scale that helps them, but we have to remember that the Biosecurity Act is pretty strict. There's no exceptions. The person, the body who has control, owns or has control of the land, is responsible for the weeds, and that applies as to whether you're a farm. And if you're a farm, then of course the Upper Macquarie County Council has their own ways. They've got legal a process, ultimately ending up with court cases, and it also applies to railway lines, either state-owned or privately owned, forests, and councils. And of course, Upper Macquarie County Council even has the legal authority to take councils to court. Now, of course, that's pretty drastic and highly unlikely, and I'm not saying that that's going to be, but that's the length to which these things, and we're dealing with another council. It would be, I think, wrong to put them under some sort of pressure to apply that. It's not, and it's not a threat at all, but it's just a statement of fact. But of course, we do get complaints from citizens who actually live outside, citizens of New South Wales from Oberon, concerned about the Councillor Marty pointed out that blackberries aren't water distributed; they go along the roads. But if you from Duck Malloy Road, it does get into Oberon. Farmers in Oberon don't like it. Now, I think we do have some sort of responsibility to do that, to ensure that they're right. It's a 1 year lot. I think if I'm not quite sure where we are, but I'd just like to see the recommendation carried as such, as written. There was a number of conferences between the General Manager of Upper Macquarie Council and Lithgow City Council, as well as the others. I think they came up with a good outcome, and I would just recommend that we support it. If necessary, Madam Mayor, I'll move an amendment to that effect. I'm not quite sure where we're up to, but if it needs an amendment, which is the Council's administration's recommendation, then I'll move that as an amendment.
I don't think we require amendment. It's pretty clear to me. Right of reply now to Councillor Marnie. Thank you.
Point of order. Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken.
No, I didn't see that. Sorry, Councillor Coleman.
And
you can speak. Thank you.
On our screen at the moment, it simply states that item 3.5 be deferred to a councillor information session. That's all it's saying. The original motion needs to be moved as an amendment, if that's what Councillor Leslie would like to do, because at the moment we're deferring it. That's all we're doing. We're deferring it. So if Councillor Leslie isn't going to move the original motion as an amendment, I will. So I'm going to move the original motion as...
under the circumstances...
It's Councillor Leslie's amendment. So Councillor Leslie, you speak for me. Thank you.
Well, since the debate has been clarified, yes, I will move an amendment that that the administration's recommendation, I will move the amendment, which is the administration's recommendation.
And I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Would you like to speak, Councillor Coleman?
I think we've had enough discussion.
Right. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to note that we have 2 representatives that sit on the Central Tablelands Weeds Authority. Is that 2 questions here. Is that a monthly meeting? Yeah.
Mr. Edgecombe or Councillor Leslie would know that, or Councillor O'Connor?
No, we don't meet monthly. We probably meet we meet 6 times a year, plus 2 or 3 sessions of work sessions.
Yeah, workshops.
Yeah, workshops. Thank you.
Okay. So, are the minutes of those meetings available to our council and to councillors? Should be.
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
Sorry, Mayor Statham, I'm not a member of that committee. I don't know if they're available or not. Perhaps Councillor Leslie might have an understanding.
Yes, well, the minutes are a public record, as indeed the minutes of Lithgow City Council are a public record. So they're available to anyone who wishes to see it. And I would be reasonably confident, although I'm not privy to it, I would be reasonably confident that the Upper Macquarie Council actually sends the minutes to the council, but I would stand corrected as that's not true.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Bryce?
They meet 6 times a year. I think it'd be advisable that those minutes are added to our meetings that we get every month, or, at the end, board meetings, so that people can see what is being advised, what has been advised, what it's been talked about, so that when these matters arise, that we are fully aware of what's going on and what needs to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any other speakers? Thank you.
Just one question, if I could.
Yes,
through
Councillor.
The administration. As we are in caretaker mode, it's $150,000 cap. We can't commit 150,000 above. So is that what we're doing now? We can't actually commit $150,000. Are we in breach of the caretaker regulations?
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So this is it will be a new agreement with Central Tablelands Weeds Authority.
No, with respect, Mr. Gurney, the issue isn't the agreement. The question is in relation to the council, local government regulations, which stipulate that during the caretaker period, we cannot commit more than 150,000 or 1% of the council's revenue.
Through you, Mayor Statham, this was put forward as being within the caretaker period regulations with the $150,000.
Yeah, but 150,000, you have to be below the 150,000. That's what I'm clarifying, is it? It says you can't make decisions from $150,000 above.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'm just referring to the Office of Local Government Pre-Election Guide, which references the regulation, and it states that an amount equal to or greater than 150,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Ring. If there's no other speakers, right of Councillor.
Just quickly, once again, I think we're doing the right thing. It's any weed control is good weed control.
Councillor Marnie, right of reply, thank you.
I'll just pick up on some comments from Councillor O'Connor, and there's times when he speaks and he's talking fairly common sense. And I think that idea of the interim year where the money is obviously released this year with a review going next year has merit. I'm not a subscriber to any weed control is good control. You do kill weeds in every control action, whether it's efficient use of money or not. I perhaps have not brought this forward in a particularly coherent way, and I'll accept that. But and it may be better left to the incoming council to bring a notice of motion in relation to review of all of our functions. I think Councillor O'Connor again spoke well to the fact that we may in fact have cost benefits. We may not, but we should explore those and whether it's worth investing in plant to deliver these services, and we can deliver both authorised officers under the Act can undertake weed control, so we can get 2 services out of our own staff. So I'll accept that perhaps the way I brought it forward hasn't really allowed for the pathway I'd like to see, which is I'm happy we've seen weed control happening during the summer. I believe there was adequate time, given that most of blackberry control that I do happens between about November and February during the flowering and fruiting period. So I felt there was adequate time for this to be reviewed. I'm not looking for money to not be expended in our public road systems, but as Councillor Leslie quite rightly stated, the Biosecurity Act was a combination of a whole lot of agricultural acts. No act has had the power that the New South Wales Biosecurity Act has been provided in agriculture in recent times. Some of our powers of entry exceed New South Wales Police. There's very little limitation to them entering private and public property. And yes, they can enforce fines on people. What I'd like to see is a considered use of the financial resources and whether there is a better case, and also making sure that we've got controls over all of our lands, which we've got general biosecurity duties, which includes the tip, the sewer treatment plant, the roads, the reserves, the parks. All of those are covered under the general biosecurity duty. So I think we'll spare everyone, and I'll let it follow through its process from here.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Leslie, your right of reply. Thank you for the amendment.
No, I'm happy to put it. Yep.
I'll put Councillor Leslie's amendment. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
Move the
That
5-minute
becomes now
recess.
the motion.
Can we-
No,
sorry.
that becomes the motion. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. We'll have a 5-minute only recess.
Thank you.
Councillors, could I have somebody move that we go back into normal council? Thank you.
I'll
Councillor
second it.
Bryce. Councillor O'Connor seconded. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Page 24, expenditure report and outcomes achieved. Have a move.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. A seconder, thank you. Councillor McGee. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, Mayor Statham, I'm looking at this and from the special rate variation, we've done a lot of work over the last year or so in relation to the projects that have come before council. If you look at the page, I won't go through them all, but from page 25 to page 28, it's just full of projects that we've completed as a result of the special rate variation. Now, I agree that some of them would have been completed, but not all of them, and this just goes to show that there's over 30 projects here that we've had done. I think it's a testament to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor McGee, thank you.
Yes, it's an awesome report, and it's good to see the writing on the wall of what we have achieved and achieving. Like a lot of things just ongoing. This is only just getting rolling, and it's a very exciting time for the council and the new council coming in. We'll be getting a lot of good credit because it's going to be a very exciting time with the activities happening, a lot of the disaster funding through. So the future is good as far as the asset renewal and things like that go. Just congratulations to everyone. I say.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin, right of reply.
Speak to it. Thank you, Mayor Statham. I just would like to point out, yes, it's a good outcome, but 25% was not expended. And when the rate increase went through, council was well aware that they would not have the resources to implement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin, right of reply.
No, just put the motion, Mayor Statham.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor, all those in favour say aye. Okay, so I'll call a division. Thank you. Councillor Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, Marnie, McGee, Ring and Coleman against Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Carried. Page 29, referral of financial reports for external audit year ended 2024.
Happy to move it.
Happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce.
You look so much alike.
Councillor Ring, right of you. Sorry, would you like to, you're moving that?
Look, it's an administrative function, purely and simple. There's no need to discuss it.
No discussion.
I'll put the motion if nobody else wants to speak. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. (32) 3.8 proposed membership of the New South Wales Association of Mining and Energy Related Councils.
Happy to move.
Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I think this is an important organisation that we need to be part of. It's only a period of 12 months. I think we should give it a go and see where it leads us.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
No, I don't actually support the motion. I'll move an amendment.
Certainly. What is your amendment?
Councillor Coleman needs a seconder first.
No, I'll second it.
Is that Councillor Bryce? Councillor Ring? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bryce. Yeah, that's right. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councillor Coleman on this one. It is important that we meet and be part of groups that are dealing with the same issues as far as mining and energy. I think it's important that we have these networks happening, especially in our transition period. The only thing I suggest is that you change a Wollongong Shire Council as Wollongong City Council. It's never been a Shire. Thank you.
I'd like to move amendment now if I can.
Yes, Councillor Ring.
I'd like to move that the decision to join the Association of Mining and Energy Related Councils New South Wales will refer to an information session of the new council.
Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McGee.
In the report, it does state that previously this council was a member and this council dropped out because the way forward didn't align. I'd like to know a bit more about this organisation. I'm not opposed to joining it, but this should have been bought earlier if it's for a full 12 months. I'd like to know more about it, why we dropped out previously, what has changed, has anything changed? If there's benefit in it, then I'm happy, but I'm not seeing a lot of benefit at this moment in this report. When we're sort of talking down equal to staff and yourself not talk, it's very disconcerting.
Sorry about that. I apologise.
Thank you.
In fact, I've hardly spoken to the staff tonight.
Well, then, could you ask the staff not to speak when councillors are speaking?
Well, the council staff sometimes need to speak to each other. I'm sorry. Don't reply, thank you. So can I have a seconder, please, to Councillor Ring's amendment, which is Councillor McGee. Councillor McGee, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Yes, I do tend to agree with Councillor Ring in that I just find it a little bit dubious. I think it could be contrary to what we're doing as far as our LEAP program goes. I think we've got quite a few irons in the fire that are not settled. You know, we've got things that we are just getting in train and we should be concentrating on them, not another committee and another organisation. You know, we need to keep this as simple as possible so that we don't get crossed up again. I think that with the LEAP project that we have engaged in train, it is ahead of everyone else and we should continue leading the way, but that should come through in an information session. So I totally agree with Councillor Ring's amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Ring.
I've already spoken to it.
So, Councillor Marnie, did you have your hand up to speak? No. Anybody else going to speak to that? No. I'll put the amendment then. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? Councillor Coleman, you for or against? Yes. So can I do that again, please? All those for the amendment? Pardon? Okay, against the amendment? Right. Can I call a division, please? For the amendment, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against the amendment is Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Coleman. I'll put that, thank you. So where the motion has been lost, the amendment has, sorry, Councillor Ring, can you just repeat what you just said a minute ago, please?
No, can I just ask, are you voting for the amendment or against it?
I'm voting for the amendment.
Okay, then the amendment's won.
Yeah, it is.
So the amendment's carried,
right.
And that is basically to defer the item to an information session.
Thank you. Yeah, so that will come the motion now to go to an information session. All those in favour say aye. Have a division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. All councillors except Councillor Leslie, thank you. Page 36. Continuation of the Walgan Road reconstruction interim budget allocation. Could I have a mover, thank you?
I'll move it with an amendment. I'd like to put an additional point onto it.
What is that additional point? Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Point number 2 is that item 3.9 is referred to the ARIC Committee for review and advice to the next council on developing an effective policy on Section 226, Section D of the Local Government Act.
Somebody that would like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Leslie?
I've spoken to this before when this issue has come before. It's got nothing to do with the current mayor. It's got to do with correct procedures. I've looked at a number of councils over the last several months. They have well-defined delegations policies for the mayors. And I think in order to protect the mayoral position moving forward, regardless of who it is, we need a clear policy. I think we need guidance. We need to be consistent with other councils. I have not found a council which would give a mayor financial delegation of 2.2 million. Most councils I've looked at, major councils, large councils, limit the expenditure to 500,000.
Mr Edgecombe will speak to that. Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. While I don't disagree...
Point of order. Yeah, it's not relevant on whether or not you agree or disagree. You are not part of the council. An elected representative of this community is here to provide technical advice, not his personal opinion. He doesn't have to agree with what I'm saying.
I can rephrase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe.
I just want to iterate to the council the importance of the Walgan project and the need to push forward as quickly as possible. That community stands to be one of the most displaced communities in all of Australia as a result of the disaster declarations. They will be without their primary access until, by all accounts, 2030. The application for the funding was submitted at the end of June. However, every day that the construction program pushes out is another day tacked onto the end where that community is detached from their access, detached from their homes, and their businesses suffer. This item and this budget allocation was presented to the mayor because we discovered that the approval process for our application is going to take much longer than was originally the timeframe that was originally afforded to the council. So we presented a package of work to Transport for New South Wales to get an interim approval to deliver that whilst they assess our EPAR application for the full 327 million. They approved that package, and as soon as they did, we requested that the mayor, given it the urgency of the project, endorse that with Transport for New South Wales or similar approval, so that we can move forward with these engagements so that the project doesn't lose a single day of progress and that community doesn't have to suffer a single day longer than they already have to. So whilst the council can just sticking to the facts, that's the reason why the memo went to the mayor with the urgency that it did. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Councillor Ring, I need a seconder for Councillor Ring's amendment. Thank you.
You already had it.
Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak? Thank you. Would you like to speak, Councillor Leslie? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm not actually questioning the decision to use the mayor's delegation to do this, because I agree. A $327 million application is essential. I mean, and application, it's essential, and we've got to get it done. And the people of the Walgan Valley are in a dire strait, and they need every support they can get. The reason I seconded the amendment is that it's sending it to the ARIC to make sure that such processes such as this are legal and accurate and are valid. Because the one thing I would not want is another stuff up on procedure by which the people at the Walgan Valley suffer and have their access delayed because we don't get the procedures right. This way, we can get proper advice on the procedures and get it right.
Anybody else wishing to speak to the amendment? Councillor McGee.
Yes, I'd like to foreshadow a motion in the first place, just in case the amendment does not get up.
That's the motion.
Yeah, so I'd like to. So this is the motion. Yeah, I'm foreshadowing a motion then. And because I think that we're already referring to Eric already this evening, I don't think we should be loading them up with all of our problems. We have questions on governance, that's fair enough. And I think that we are on way to addressing those. If Councillor Ring has issues with $2.2 million or the amount that the Mayor's delegative authority is, then that can be raised if and when the new council sits. I think this is the wrong time to be debating this. We need to move forward and we need to approve what the Mayor did. The Mayor did the right thing, and that was to move forward with this project with all speed and haste.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else? Councillor Wood?
Ms. Statham, I believe, through you to the General Manager, I believe that process is going to be undertaken in the near future anyway. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Statham, I have asked the governance and risk manager to develop a more detailed delegations register. At the moment, the council simply has a simple delegation to the Mayor and the General Manager, and we can have a more detailed one, which is what some councils do, and some councils publish that on their website, which we would also be able to do. So that would be something that would go to the new council.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager and Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, please.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve, Councillor Ring.
No, I'm forgiven.
Just a final statement on it. Again, it's this process of getting our governance systems right. I think I know where Councillor Ring is driving this from. We do have to be able to respond quickly to move a very important project along, but we just want to also make sure we've got our systems right. So I'm happy for it to be referred to the ARIC committee. The ARIC committee is there for exactly that purpose. They're not sitting there twiddling their thumbs when meetings come up. This is some of the material they need to look at. So I'm happy to support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply, Councillor Ring. Thank you.
What I put up has got nothing to do with the 2.2 million or the people in Walgett. That's a very serious issue down there. This is about correct governance and procedures moving forward and bringing this council into line so it doesn't get itself in trouble moving down the path going forward. We need to ensure that decisions made are appropriate. The 226D of the Act specifies policy-making functions. Financial delegation is not a policy-making function. Making a policy that authorises a financial delegation for the Mayor is a policy-making function. Now, earlier in the year, I discussed this with the Office of Local Government. It will be reviewed next time the government looks at the Local Government Act. This is about protecting the position of the Mayor moving forward. The Mayor makes a decision. It also means that the staff have to get their act together. Walgett, it's important, it's urgent, yes. Didn't happen yesterday, it's been going on for a long time. We need to make sure the role and position of the Mayor moving forward is protected. It's that simple, regardless of who the Mayor is.
I'll put the amendment, thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? I'll call a division, thank you. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie. Against? Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Statham. Thank you. Yeah. So that's lost, thank you.
No,
and
I'll
go
bring in
back
my
to
foreshadowed motion to
Yes, thank you, Councillor McGee.
take it back to the original motion.
Thank you. Have a seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor McGee, right of reply?
No, it's
Yep, I'll put the motion. Councillor Leslie?
No, I don't wish to speak to it.
Thank you, I'll put the motion. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Page 39, financial assistance, sporting representatives.
I'll move this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I have a second to thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
I'd like to say that Riley's already played her hockey. It happened at the beginning of August. The country women's team, which was represented by quite a few of our local stars, did really well. So I'm happy to support her travel to Goulburn, which has already happened, but hopefully reimburse her for some of the work that the money she spent.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
Thanks, Ms. Statham. I don't know Riley, but I'm sure she did very well. And if this had come to a sports advisory committee, I'm sure we would have approved this to come to the meeting. So,
thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any other speakers? Thank you. Councillor Bryce, you okay to put the motion? All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. There's a supplementary report that you'd be familiar with, councillors. It is on page 4 of the supplementary report. 26th of the 8th, 2024, January to June 2024 progress report. Could I have somebody move that, please?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Have a second to thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring, thank you.
No, it's a good report.
Councillor Bryce?
Same, yep.
If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. There's another
Room for this one.
Another report, 2.2, Regional Precincts and Partnership Program Grant Application, the Foundations. Who moved it? Councillor McGee, thank you. Have a second to thank you.
yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor McGee.
Yes, it was a fantastic presentation from Rich Evans from the foundations. The proposal involves council working in collaboration with the foundations, and it could well garner from $10 million to $20 million worth of investment in the foundations area and precinct. This would not be in direct housing or anything, to my understanding. It is pretty much region building. So it's pathways, it's things for community, and it will just benefit everyone. And this could well be the sort of investment that really gets us starting, you know, because somewhere the whole game has to start as far as investment in housing and the apprenticeships to get the tape going. Everything like that is involved in something like this. That's where $10 million gets you in a small area. So it's extremely exciting, and we tick all of the boxes along with the amount of work that the foundations have done to get this far. So they actually fall into the next category. A lot of people would be at the starting blocks, and they're already across the line into the second area. So there's a very good possibility that we can make this work, or the staff in conjunction with the foundations can bring this to fruition. And once again, these are the things that the new council will have to look forward to. It's very exciting.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Good.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor McGee. It's very exciting. It was a good presentation to listen to from Rich, and I'm happy we're partnering with private enterprise to see this through. If we can just get it through, I'm happy with it. I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
This was a great presentation, and it had a great vision for the Portland Foundations. It sort of brings everything together that's been happening out there. It will bring tourism. It will bring, you know, people to Portland. Portland will be the growth centre. It's amazing what the presentation was. Really well put together, really well thought out, and I'm happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Mann.
Briefly, I think it's a really good proposal, and particularly surrounding the livability around housing, and very good housing proposal brought forward with a mixed range of typology, which gives opportunities for a lot of people to move into Portland, but also having the public open space and all that infrastructure in place is critical. So it's a really nice bit of integrated delivery across the public and private sector.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor McGee.
Yes, just also to note that this just requires some of the executive's time. You know, there is no funding requirements from council itself, which is just fantastic. You know, so everyone has the opportunity to benefit from this. If we can get this off the ground and help out, then everyone will win.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Against? No. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. And Councillor Ring left the room. (4.1), page 45, Finance Committee meeting minutes, the 13th of August 2024. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie, thank you.
Well, it was an interesting meeting for the matters we did discuss. Myself, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring were there. But I will point out that there was no discussion about the Main Street, the loss of the funding for Main Street, despite it being a Finance Committee meeting.
Anybody else? Councillor Ring, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Leslie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Future Jobs and Investment Committee, August 2024, meeting agenda and minutes. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. A seconder, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
Nothing to add.
All right. Councillor Goodwin.
Put the motion.
Anybody wishing to speak? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Business of great urgency this evening.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor Statham, I have one.
Certainly, Councillor Leslie, your business of great urgency.
I draw attention to the manholes in Colebrook Street and the fact that although Colebrook Street itself was sealed in May, here we are almost 3 months later that the manholes still have not been lifted. Now, I know there's big circles around them, but I believe it is quite dangerous with the way that people now do dodgem driving down the road. The point about urgency is that it was known when the road was going to be done. It was finished. There should have been a scheduling for the maintenance or the restoration of the manholes at the time. That hasn't happened, and I would move that be treated as a matter of urgency and done as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Mr. Jonathan Edgecombe, thank you.
So the staff have organised contractors to address the lifting of those lids. Unfortunately, the contract has been delayed due to circumstances outside of our control, which is unfortunate. So it's already been scheduled that tomorrow inspections will commence to install steel plates over all of those manhole lids so that we correct the issue temporarily until those contractors can arrive on site. So that will happen first thing in the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Excellent work. Thank you, Councillor Leslie, for bringing that up. No other urgent meeting? Minutes? Discussion? No. I'll close the meeting at 9:15. Thank you. I wish all councillors the very